What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it. This is episode 42 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Frownfelter. Now, a lot of times, we don't think about the fact of, as first responders, as police officers, as people who serve others, that there is a gigantic support group out there for first responders. There are people who they may not necessarily be in law enforcement. However, they may have had law enforcement in their family, or they were married to law enforcement or whatever, and they are law enforcement or firefighters or EMTs or nurses or whatever, but they support them wholeheartedly. They support their veterans, their military guys, and they're there. They are kind of that rock, that hub, who wants to make sure that everybody goes home safe and does the job that they need to do. Well, there is an organization that does that just supports. They may have some either former law enforcement folks, or they may have people who have family members who are police officers, but they're not necessarily police officers themselves. And they actually network, and they have businesses designed to support first responders and police officers in general. So today's guest is actually one of those folks. And I first met this person, and I didn't even know that I had met them, but I had started following their page on LinkedIn and didn't know really much about them, but I knew they were a support network for law enforcement. In doing that, I had gone to a conference and met this one person here who, as I'm talking to them, they're like, "Oh, I do this organization." And I said, "You do this organization? And, oh, so you work for them?" And they said, No, I am the organization. So I find out that this person does so much work in just building up this organization to support law enforcement. They are currently living in Dublin, Ireland, but the company is based in New York City, or New York, not New York City. They come from a family of law enforcement in Ireland, which has made them extremely passionate about the work they do on our behalf. So several years ago, they began posting messages of support on social media for police and their families. Soon the posts were noticed and the voice was heard. The following expanded for this person, and they were receiving mail expressing gratitude for all that they were doing. As time went on, they were sent an honorary SWAT call sign from HRT OPCON 1 in the United States. The name they gave was Irish Angel. So this person was adopted, so to speak, into the Blue family as Irish Angel. If you've not heard of Irish Angel, you need to look them up. They are an organization that does so much and goes so far beyond what most people would do or consider an organization to do, or even, in fact, one person be able to do. So soon after getting that call sign, Irish Angel, they created a website called Irish Angel. And Irish Angel is a support network for all servicemen and women across the world. Service personnel and their loved ones log on to talk, share articles, news, fun stories, and experiences while on the job. So they're proud to be expanding their mission and partnering with several organizations to share information and provide resources about PTSD. So who is this Irish angel? Who is this person who comes on and is there just to support other people? Well, that person is Amanda Coleman. And she was designated Irish angel by a hostage rescue team. And she was recognized for her steadfast and unwavering support for the men and women of law enforcement around the globe, be they uniform patrol, criminal investigators, or special weapons and tactics. And it is her dedication and uplifting attitude that provides a positive effect on the morale of all during these most trying times in the world today. And that was by Stephen Brooks, who said that last bit. But I'm very honored to have Irish Angel here on the podcast today. And so welcome to the show, Amanda Coleman.
Hey, Ken. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm doing well. And you are not in the United States. As a matter of fact, you are over in Ireland right now, right?
I am indeed. I'm in rainy Dublin, damp Dublin. Is it ever anything else here?
Yeah. Oh, it just rains in Dublin all the time?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like Seattle in America,
Oh.
Where it rains like 80% of the year.
Oh, I thought you meant like transient camps and trash all over the place and horrible crime ridden.
No,
just weather-wise.
Just the weather.
Yeah.
Just the weather.
So how did you get into being what is Irish Angel? Who is Irish Angel and who is Amanda Coleman, as a matter of fact?
Oh Lord, I'm a bit like an onion. Got tons and tons of layers to me. Oh my God. Irish Angel. I was just your everyday kind of a person. Obviously had family in law enforcement here in Ireland. But we were going through our own struggles back in probably would have been about, 2015. Would you believe we were fighting over water here because we had to all of a sudden pay for water when Ireland never did before? But basically, long and short of it, they were blaming the cops here because the cops was policing the protests. And it got nasty here. But when I think of nasty versus now what I know about America, I'm like, there's no comparison, like genuinely, there's none. But Damien had said to me, he's like, Amanda, we have it bad, but you need to see what's happening in America.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. I took to the internet and I seen it was kind of in and around election time. It's funny how all of the hatred towards law enforcement tends to happen in and around election time.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous. You can be sure as eggs every 4 years that the cops are going to get it in the neck, right?
Right.
So I was blown away by it, and I was very touched by it as well. And I mean that in the respect of, it's one thing seeing cops being killed, and understanding the people behind the badge,
mm-hmm.
and knowing what they're like as people. Like I can never get away from the fact that I know who these people are behind the badge. So when I seen them being killed, it really affected me. But then I always remember the very first time I've seen, a funeral of a police officer in America, and the whole sea of blue that comes behind them. And it's not just from their town or their state or whatever. It's right across the whole country.
Yeah.
And understanding that family is like, it's solid,
Right.
It doesn't matter where you are in the country, they'll always be there. Like it affects them all.
Right.
And seeing the support that they would give to the families who was left behind as well, that was huge for me. And it really pulled at my heartstrings. So it was kind of in and around the time the Blue Lives Matter was kind of just starting to get off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know who Blue Lives Matter was at the time. And I just started to post messages of support on LinkedIn. And like you said, it was like just overnight, my following grew. And then Stephen Brooks, better call sign Precious, sent me the honorary call sign. And I knew then, it was only then I knew how much of an impact I was actually having. And unknowns to myself, I wasn't expecting it to be anything. It was just doing something that just felt right to me at the time.
Right.
And so I just, when they sent me that call sign, I was like, that really got to me. It was like, here they are struggling
Mm-hmm.
through their difficult times, and yet they're acknowledging what I'm doing. So I had seen the hatred towards them online, and I said, I'll give back. The best way I can do it is to build a website. And like that, I built a website that was username and password. So it was a safe place for them to go.
Sure.
Everybody was vetted that came on. And it was for law enforcement, first responders, and veterans. And in doing that, I soon learned about, I knew that mental health was always a thing in the veteran community,
Mm-hmm.
but seeing the impact it had on law enforcement as a whole and first responders really, knocked me for six, because it's the type of thing we didn't hear about over here. We never knew that cops killed themselves. We just, it just wasn't, you would never hear of it.
Right.
So I was really vexed by the whole thing, and I wanted to do something to help. A friend of mine is a sheriff in New York, and he was like, Angel, what do you want to do? He was like, you have this influence. He said, why not turn it into something that's going to, do good for you? So we got our heads together, and he's been amazing, and he helped me found Irish Angel.
That's
So
that's so
yeah,
cool. That's so cool. I mean,
right.
you don't think, I mean, and I'm gonna guess that's a digested version of how it really went about, huh? I
Yeah,
mean, that you could probably write a novel on how the whole thing kind of just
I
fell
actually
apart.
could.
Yeah.
I actually could. I was only thinking about that the other night. I was like, my God, when I think of like all these years, and it's so funny because all of these years it's actually taken for it to start to come into full effect now.
Yeah.
And we're literally just on the brink of launching our new website, um, which I suppose in a way it's like opening a new chapter for Irish Angel.
Sure.
And I don't mean it in a chapter in the nonprofit
Nope.
terminology. I mean,
Right, but like
just
in a book, yeah, you're
yeah,
opening, yeah,
yeah, exactly. It's
sloughing
like
off the old, getting that, getting out, coming out of the cocoon as like a butterfly.
that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
But we've
Yeah.
been working really, really hard to get it to where it is now. And like now it's only coming into fruition.
Right.
Obviously because of COVID and lockdowns, and like 2 years of our lives was wasted. Um, and then with Black Lives Matter and the Antifa, the violence that was going on over there and the
Yeah.
rhetoric, and then it, completely turning any support that was built up over those years on law enforcement, flipping that on its head, and then just making a whole tsunami of stress for cops in America.
Right. Right.
So that really hindered not only us in a fund from a fundraising aspect, but just how we were going to restructure everything. Now we had a bigger problem that we had to look after,
Right. Right.
and that's still ongoing, and that's all the wheels of that's always going to keep turning.
Right.
But we knew that we had to, one, hold on for dear life, because at the end of the day, you're not taking in money. Nonprofits suffered massively, but ones who support the services were even worse off, because everyone was afraid to support them in case they were going to have repercussions of sponsorship, or for businesses or whatever. So
Oh, right. Because everything's got to be political anymore.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even to the point of, like, when we decided to restructure how we were going to fundraise, we were going to do an online auction. And we had a lot of sports memorabilia that we were going to auction off. And for a period of time there, we couldn't do it because the feedback that we were getting back was cops were not going to buy it. Supporters were not going to buy it, because here you had the likes of the NFL, the baseball teams, everybody turning against law enforcement,
Right. Yeah.
and not standing for the flag. And so it was nothing but disrespect towards what we represent. So we had to pull that. So it was nearly just like a waiting game. We literally had to ride the storm and just keep ourselves out there, as in sharing the news and sharing messages of support, until this blew over, and then we could restart and restructure again.
Right.
So It's been a difficult climb, but we're here.
I think about what would cops be willing to bid on, and what would they, as opposed to the sports memorabilia, whatever,
Yeah.
guns and
Yeah.
cars.
That's
You
it.
can't have that stuff over there.
No, but the problem about it was we actually got donated guns there, and they were fabulous. Like I think we got like 5 Henry rifles from Jason Fields from Fields Ammo, and we got 2 Trump pistols, um and we got ammunition and everything donated. But the problem was, you mentioned that on social media. You're off social media.
Oh yeah. So yeah. They jump on that quick.
Exactly. So you, in that respect, like obviously with what's going on with big tech, I mean, we were stifled. No matter what way we tried to come at it, we were getting it in the neck. So we couldn't. We literally just had to wait and ride that tsunami out till it settled.
Yeah.
And thankfully now, it's not that it's settled. It's not settled by no shape of the imagination, but I mean, it's a hell of a lot better than where it was. And support for law enforcement now, because of all of what's happened this last year and a half, I mean, it's only grown because you have lawlessness all over the country. And people, real good, honest, good living people are sick of it, and they want to support their law enforcement.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. Yeah. So really quick, let's go way back in time. Let's go way. I mean, I don't know how many years back in time. Who was little Amanda? Who was this little?
I knew you were going to ask me.
Yeah, because that's what I ask everybody. But we gotta. I don't know. Did they call you Manny when you were little?
I'm only 5 foot.
Oh, that's true. Did they call you Manny? What'd they call you when you were little? Just Amanda?
Just Amanda. My mother wouldn't let them call me anything else.
Yeah.
It's Amanda. You're not Mandy. You're Amanda. It's like, all right.
Okay. Yeah. So who were you? What'd you do? What was your thing?
My thing.
The thing that kind of formed you into who you are. Who was that little kid?
It's funny you say that. Like, and I was literally just explaining this to you some time ago there. I always had a love for America, and the reason why I did was because when I was a kid, you have to remember, and you're talking about, even though I live in Dublin, which is the capital of the country, and like right now it's a city, a cosmopolitan city, just like New York is, right? Or any of the big cities. And but Dublin, particularly where I lived beside the airport, and it was all country. It's all countryside. It was known as then North County Dublin. And there was no, like, we had TV, but we had like 2 channels. I'm not that old, but I know that, but we were backward in a way. So my mother always told me stories when we were kids, about World War I, World War II. And I always remember, I don't know the ins and outs of it because I was only a kid, but they were talking about the Gulf War. And I always remember my mother saying to me, Amanda, like, we need to start praying, girl, every night, she said, because World War III is about to happen, she said to me.
And so the Gulf War, and you're meaning back in the early 90s Gulf War, not the after.
No, it would have been, it was very first Saddam Hussein. It was like, was it early 90s?
Yeah, early 90s, late 80s.
It was early 90s. It was. Yeah, it was. So that's what I did. Every night went to bed with my Bible. Not that I'm a holy Joe or anything. I do believe though. But I went to bed every night with my Bible, praying to good God that that red button wasn't going to be hit, right? Because that's what I'm terrified of. And I remember always my mom calling me from the bedroom down to the living room, and the 9 o'clock news was on, and she was like, look, she said, look. And I always remember the big super carrier ships heading into the Gulf, and she said, the Americans are going in. She said, we're going to be okay, everything is going to be okay now. And obviously your mom is telling you that, everything's going to be all right.
Right.
Yeah. So I had comfort in that. And from that day till this, I became fascinated with the military over there, with the likes of the super carriers, everything, jets, you name it. I loved it. Always loved it. I never had any idea though that it was ever going to lead me to this path. Yeah. But I'm not complaining. I love what I did. I love it.
So you
And
see those carriers going in, those naval
yeah,
ships going into the Gulf there, and so there was I'm guessing there was just a sense like the world's going to hell in a handbasket, but the Americans are going in and they're going to make sure
and
everything's
they're going to
okay.
make sure everything is okay.
Is was that a general like thought process? And because I've got a lot of listeners in the U.S. and we don't. And I was actually talking to somebody last week because you had relayed this story to me, and the thing was that when I was telling them about this, they're like, "Oh, do the Europeans, do people around the world, do they see us and have a disdain for the United States because of, who we are and stuff?" And based off of what you told me, I kind of got the impression that it was just the opposite. There's not a disdain for the U.S. like the media says there is,
Yeah.
but from what your experience was, is that, oh, hey, the Americans are there. We're going to be okay.
We always look to the Americans for hope. Like that, like Ireland is a tiny little island. We're tiny. We have a very, very small military, and they're actual peacekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we were to go to war and anything happened, I mean, we there wouldn't be any of us left.
Right.
We're tiny. So we have an amazing, don't get me wrong, our military are amazing, but the Irish Rangers are just like they're phenomenal. But it was always, you knew if the Americans was going to go in, one, the ship was going to hit the fan, and two, it was for the right reason. It was always for the right reason. Well, that's always how we were led to believe. And it's only, I'd say, in the last 6 years, 5 years maybe, that you hear different now. It's not that you hear different. I think it was just because of the last administration. Europe as a whole are pretty liberal socialist countries,
right.
But we weren't always that way, and so Trump was big and brash, and people didn't know him as a politician. They knew him as who he was, right? So they judged him on his character as opposed to what he was doing. And that's sad, really, because realistically, the good that he did was phenomenal. And that's not bringing it back to politics, but it's just how I've seen the change in how America is perceived now.
Right.
That played such a big part in it. And realistically, I was never a big fan of Trump either, like at the beginning, because I wasn't educated. It was only when I got into doing what I do now, I had to be I had to neutralize myself. I had to learn about the American way, about the Constitution, and unbelievably, the amount of politics that's involved in the services is just, it's ridiculous. Not even in the services, in life in general.
Sure. Yeah.
You're led and said by your governments, like it's a constant. You guys talk about it all the time. It's involved in the workplace. It's involved in home life. It's, here, until the pandemic, we never heard much of anything. So it's really engrossed in everything that goes on in the United States.
It was always there. It was always there, I guess, but it was never so divisive and so prolific as it is right now. And I guess it's been since Trump took office, and everybody really, there was people that have not liked, the presidents prior to, either on whatever side, you're looking at, conservative, liberal, whatever. But there's always been that. But it's so much more now. And I think it's pervasive because of social media or whatever. And everybody's trying to get everybody on their side so they can have, whatever support.
I agree. And I think that's why, why you see the turn in how people think about America now, because there's this whole other side of nonsense that's going on right now. I won't get into, but
right.
this whole other nonsense within Europe and not just Europe, the world as a whole, where now they want everybody singing on the same hymn sheet, when realistically countries have lost their identity and they have lost their way. when it came to their values and their freedom and their, their traditions. And I find that really sad. But
Right.
that's how I see the change in how people look upon America now. But
Right.
now I look to America in hopes of freedom. They're you guys are the ones that set the bar for the rest of the world. And I'm hoping that the wheels of time change now
Yeah. I
and go
hope
back.
that
That
pendulum.
pendulum swings back, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That has got to happen. Not just for the country's sake or for the world's sake, but I mean, even for the daily living, I mean, of cops on the streets. Like their hands is tied behind their back now. There's all these rules, regulations, mandates, everything else brought in, which is just all that more added pressure to them, and the
Right.
same military and first responders. So it's a constant. I can't even imagine what it's like to be working in that field and have that constant beat down constantly, from all angles. So that's partly why we do what we do, because we understand, even though I'm not in it, I'm in this game with Irish Angel long enough and speak to every single day, speak to people who has been through the wars and back again, who are in their own war right now in their own mind. So I have a better understanding about what's going on.
Right.
And I have a love and a passion to want to help them because of how they are feeling right now.
Yeah. And that's cool. And that's not something that you, like I said, you don't see a lot of that support like that unless you're specifically in it. Like, okay, well, since I'm here, I might as well. But to have somebody sit from the outside and say, I hate to see that. I don't like to see. I'm going to do what I can, because it's what you can do.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So did you know, I mean, when going through school, what were your plans? Did you know what you wanted to do? And I mean, obviously you said this kind of came out of, wow, thin air, and then you developed it in what it is, but did you have an idea of otherwise what kind of profession you wanted to be and who you wanted to?
I was always playing with dolls' hairs. I was a hairdresser for 22 years, and I left school when I think I was 15. I didn't finish school, and I started an apprenticeship. In Ireland, it's different to how it's done in the States. You do an apprenticeship and you learn everything. You don't just specialize in one thing, you learn everything. So I did an apprenticeship for 4 years. And yeah, we were not a wealthy family. We were a pretty poor family. So for us growing up, it was the thing to do, to get out and get a job. And that at a young age, that's what you did. And I always wanted to do hairdressing. So I broke my wrist going back about 7 years ago. I broke it real bad in the snow. Sorry, used to snow. We got snow. And
snow's not something you think of when you think of Ireland, but okay. Yeah.
Right. So no, I left hairdressing then and started my own business. And it was actually through my own business, just being on LinkedIn, that I realized the influence you can actually have, particularly with businesses and what have you, and like-minded people. And when I gave up sugar and spice, I then went into doing what I do with Irish Angel. And as I said, that was not meant to be anything but a moral support network. But thankfully now it's grown. We're growing really fast now, that things are, restrictions. Well, restrictions in the States are a little bit better than here. We literally just went into another kind of level 3 lockdown today.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah, nightmare. I'm over it. So yeah, that the restrictions are being lifted, so I can travel over there, and I can do the work that I need to do and put the teams together that we can make this a success. It's, as long as it's helping people, that's all that matters.
Right.
And moving forward, that's what it's going to do.
So where did that come from? Where did that desire to help other people? Obviously you want to help people by looking good, so you fix their hair and do stuff like that, but where did this desire, because it can't just be a fleeting, this is what I do this month, and next month I'm going to do something else. You've got it. Where did that come from? Did your parents instill this in you to say, hey, you need to support people, help people, or was it a family thing? Or
we were kind of, I guess I'm just kind of nurturing by nature, like I'm just naturally that way. But I had, my brother died back in 93, and family members suffered PTS through grief.
Mm.
And us not knowing, I suppose I wasn't educated on it then either. We just assumed that it was just grief, you know, and then you're watching this all unravel and them turn to drink alcohol for as a crutch, and the years of watching that happen. And then, you know, it ended up turning into something far greater from a mental standpoint. And it was me that stepped in to help. And from that day on, it gave me nearly a better understanding of the addiction side of things, of the mental health side of things, you know.
Right.
So that, coupled with having family in law enforcement, it bothered me when I seen what was happening, and I seen the suicide rates and everything else, and that I knew that I had to do something then to help.
Right.
So it's just kind of flourished since then, making the right connections, meeting the right people, making sure we have the right resources, and all that kind of good stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And even the Irish Angel team, even though I'm not in law enforcement, it's predominantly those in service, past or present. We have a phenomenal team, like really, really good. So while someone might say to me, you know, what do you know about law enforcement? I'm like, I don't, but these do. I got me an army behind me.
Right. Yeah. And you said you had family that were in law enforcement. Is that right?
Yeah. I have a cousin and I have a brother-in-law.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're are they active police officers or retired or yeah?
No, active. One is a detective superintendent, and the other he's just a regular beat cop.
And that's over in Ireland.
Yeah.
Now let's see, I'm going to try to be as delicate as I can with this one. But you know, there's that, I don't know if you know this, but there is an old adage or an old stereotype of cops being that Irish guy.
Yeah.
That, you know, he'd be walking his beat, you know, whether it's Boston or Chicago or wherever, and he'd be walking it, and you know, he's like, you better get down from there, you know, or I was yelling at the guy in the Irish accent, you know, and then but that was the idea, that was the thing. And you look at old cartoons, whether Bugs Bunny or whatever, and that was the thing.
Cops are what the Irish like. You know, they were.
That's who everybody was, and it's what they do. And I mean, I would think because of just in New York, there was such an influx of Irish immigrants that came in, that's what they were working guys, and they were able to, you know they could have a solid job. They would have reliable income for their families, and they can do that job. And I think they did that job. You know, that, or you could be, I don't know, you see it in movies all the time, all the different jobs that Irish immigrants had. And then just the I guess the weird racism of Irish.
You know, it's really funny. I look at it, and I look at what's going on with regards to racism now.
Mm-hmm.
Going back, like when the famine and everything happened here, we went on over to America. First of all, we were bought by the British. We were sold to Americans as slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And just like a lot of other nationalities were. Right. And so that's kind of, sorry, my dog is paw. He's like this with his paw. So that all those nationalities, you know, it's the Irish were one of the nationalities that was the most degraded in the United States.
Oh yeah,
they were. You know, with no dogs, no cats, no Irish. And then there were signs for no Irish need not apply for jobs. And that's actually, I believe, now I could be wrong, but someone had told me a story in New York of just how much how cops got jobs in New York was because nobody would take the jobs because they were brutal in them days. Like, I mean, people were killing each other left, right, and center. You know, there was an ongoing war on the streets all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So the only ones that would take the jobs, that was willing to take the job, was the Irish. And that's how there's such a mass population of Irish within the services.
Mm.
And I find it, I can never judge somebody on the color of their skin.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
for the content of their character, nothing to do with that. But we're all human beings, and every one of us, including the Irish back in the day, we're all given our own choices to make, and we all have the exact same choices to make in our lives. You know, do we fight and build a life for ourselves, earn respect for ourselves? That's exactly what the Irish did, and everybody's given them same choices. You can either stay in that mentality of victimhood, or woe is me, or you get up and you say, no, I am not going to be that person.
Right.
I'm going to earn my place in society, regardless of what people think of me, or what they think of where I come from, or anything like that. And I think to this day, that's still the case. I think everybody is given the choices. We're all responsible for our own decisions. And that's not to say we don't make bad decisions. Everybody does, but it's how you learn from them decisions and you move forward. That's what really matters. That's the content of your character.
Right.
So, I think if we were able to do it all those years ago, anybody can do it now.
Right. And the frustrating
people have now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the frustrating thing is that they have that whole cancel culture thing right now that says, if 20 years ago you scrawled something on the inside of a bathroom wall, or I guess at this point we can, 10 years ago you posted something on Twitter or wherever, and you are now ostracized for what your younger self did. And I just had Dave Smith on my last podcast, and have you met Dave Smith? Yeah. And we were talking about that when you're 19 years old, you're stupid, you're an idiot, you don't know, you think you know everything, and you're not a complete idiot that you're walking off a cliff and you think it's the right thing to do. But what I mean is you do stupid things as a kid, and you do things that you don't understand who you are or what's going on. And then you grow because of your mistakes, because of the stupid things you did. You grow and you learn and you become better and you progress and you become, somebody that's able to do something more.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say not every 19-year-old does that. There's some 19-year-olds that are mature beyond their years and wise beyond their years. And it's amazing to see those guys and girls. But there's that line of you do stupid stuff when you're younger. You do things you shouldn't do. There's a lot of stuff that happens. And then you fast forward to years later, you're like, you know what? I know not to do that now. I can raise my children the right way because I learned these lessons. And
sometimes we have to learn the hard way.
Right.
You do. I'm not like, even, it's like you said, you constantly evolve. I never thought in a million years I'd be the person that I am now. Realistically, I was happy to coast through life, like doing me thing, doing me hairdressing, doing whatever. And just, as long as you were happy and you had your paycheck every week and you were doing, you had the purpose to get up and do your job, you had your kids and everything else.
Right.
But realistically now, from because of the work I do, you can't buy what I get out of what I do now. You can't, who I am as a person has grown massively. I wouldn't have having a clue about America. Like, realistically, I always loved America, but I never knew everything that went on in America. Now I feel like I'm a part of it, but I educate myself on it, where I would never have done that like a couple of years ago. Right. And I'd have made those stupid mistakes and stupid decisions. But now I'm a much better person than I was 10 years ago,
Sure. Yeah. And I remember asking you where do the funds come from for Irish Angel, and are you able to live off of that and all this different stuff? And you told me that it takes a lot of sacrifice and it costs a lot of money for some of the things that you do, especially if you have to fly from Ireland over to the States and do different kind of show up type events and stuff. And that comes straight out of your pocket sometimes.
Sometimes it does, yeah. It's funny, it's actually cheaper to fly from Ireland to the United States than it is to fly from state to state in America.
Really?
Yeah. I got a ticket before. It was like $300 to fly from here to America and back again. So yeah, you can get some great deals, but in America, everything's so expensive. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I tend to go over every quarterly before the recession, or not the recession, before the pandemic. And I'm doing the same now. I head back there in February. But I tend to go over, squash everything into 5 or 6 weeks that whilst I'm there, because, if I was living there, I'd be out doing all this kind of thing all of the time. But so I kind of cram everything into 5 or 6 weeks whilst I'm there to try and do things. But it is expensive to have to go around these states and do what you have to do. But you've got to, everything is justified, even from the last visit when I was there. I don't even know how many states I did. I think I did about 7, I think. But each of them was beneficial for Irish Angel, as in, it's helped us grow. We're now opening a chapter in Texas, and please God, one in Florida, and building the teams, getting out there and building the teams that's going to be able to do the fundraising within those states, to be able to allow us to put our programs in place. And we're working on a really, really good program. I can't say too much about it, but I'm under wraps. But it's going to be, it's something that's not being done, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And we're working with some good organizations on that. So that's going to roll out, and we're having our conference in Boston in September. So we're hoping it'll be done for then. And then, just having the teams in place to be able to fundraise, take the burden off. It's not that it's a burden. Burden's the wrong word. To help me, basically, because I'm only one person, right?
To share the wealth.
To share the wealth, to get it around the country.
That's right. Let everybody have a hand.
Like, at the end of the day, we service the whole of the United States. Like, if people are in crisis and they use one of the resources that's available to them, if they're struggling financially, and that happens sometimes, with addiction or with PTS and mental health issues, you can find yourself in financial difficulty. It's expensive, like I said, to fly from state to state, and a lot of the time the treatment is out of state. So the organizations can then reach out to us and apply for a grant for them to be able to pay for their airline tickets and to make sure that they get the help they need. So we're going to be doing that all across America. So that's why it's so important to do the fundraising, and to make the connections and meet the people and get out there to do it. It's not that I just like jetting around and doing things. It's not that at all. It is a good part of it, but it is work at the end of the day, and it's for the greater good. So it's something that, that has to be done, and it will pay off, please God, in the near future. Right. It's already happening. So I'm happy, as long as we can help just one person, and that's already happened. So I'm right. It's just continuation. It just needs to keep on continuing. So
you've probably seen more of the United States than a lot of people who live in the United States have seen of their own country.
Yeah, exactly.
Just although being able to
I actually don't get to see a lot of it. It's so big. Like, you were there in Vegas with me. I got to see a little bit of Vegas on the last day, but we were at the conference and we were, out to dinners then in the evening time. So you were literally in and around that vicinity. So you didn't get to see that much, really.
True.
And the same when I went to Texas or I went to Florida and all this kind of thing, you're in meetings all the time. You're literally flying there in meetings, going to dinner, and then you're home. You're back again. So you don't actually get to, it's not, people might think, she's just flying around and going to different areas. It's not about that. And it's not like that for me. It's about getting out, making the connections, having those important meetings, to be able to put our mission in play. Right. So It's a lot of work. It's actually a lot of work, but I
Yeah,
love it. I love it.
that's cool. And see, that's what you have to have. You have that passion. I'm assuming you wake up you wake up every day and you're like, okay, I've got this to do and I'm looking forward to my job and I'm
I do.
excited to work and stuff like that.
Actually don't look at it as work realistically. I think if you love that saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That is me. That is me. And it's not like I earn money from Irish Angel. I don't. So for me, it's a passion. It's like it helps me just as much as it helps everybody else. I know that might sound silly, but I think when you are doing something and you're paying it forward, like I said, you can't buy that. There's nothing in this world can buy that feeling that you've actually helped somebody, you
Right.
know. I think it makes you feel good as a person. It makes you feel like you're worthwhile, that you're doing something that's actually, you're really helping somebody.
Right.
Um, so that to me is everything, it's the be all and end all for me. So
Sure.
I love what I do. So you're right. When I wake up in the morning, and believe me, I'd be knackered because I'd be up till 5 in the morning here because I do American hours, like, because I network. I like going around with matchsticks in my eyes all the time. It's like you're doing like 15-hour days, right?
You're right.
But but like I said, I love what I do. I talk to amazing people every single day, and I talk to people in crisis nearly every single day. And the fact that we can turn a negative into a positive. Oh, I'm sorry, the dog. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Rookie, get out. um, so you can turn that negative into a positive. That's the most rewarding thing that you can do, and it doesn't make me feel like I'm working. It makes me feel like I have purpose.
And I think about it because there's so many people that wake up and they're just like, oh, I'm just going to go to work and I'm going to go do what I want to do or what I have to do because I have to pay the bills and stuff. And just having that ability to go do what you want to do is so cool.
Yeah.
But I was talking about, I mentioned this, I guess, early on in the podcast, some of my early episodes. And one of the things that I mentioned was that the sense of gratitude, the sense of accomplishment, all that stuff that you get from serving other people, from doing something for somebody else who either can't do it for themselves or won't do it but for themselves, or doesn't even know that they need to have something done. And then somebody can come along and say, hey, have you thought of this? Or there's this available for you. And all of a sudden there's a light at the end of the tunnel for somebody, or, just that ability to know that many hands make light work. And we forget that.
Yeah, that is for sure. You hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah.
It's definitely something, it's like you said, it's networking is so important. Like
Mhm.
the people that you allow come into your circle. And believe me, that's a tough one in itself. I've learned the hard way, and I'm still learning, right? Because I've done it with a couple, and I've been burned, where someone would piggyback off of what you do in order to raise their own profile, or and it does things for the wrong reasons, or will
Mhm.
steal an idea or whatever. Well, realistically, you have to be so careful about your circle. You have to know your people and know that they can bring value to what you do,
Right.
and that they're in it for the right reason, that it's a passion of theirs. Because I think and experienced people, and I don't just mean experienced as in educated, I mean people who has been through that situation
Mm.
and come out the other side of that situation and have healed. Well, when I say healed, they manage their thing, but they're okay with that, and that, they put that end of their life to bed, and now they too have that servant's life where they're using their experiences to help other people.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. Like, and I think when you find that network and you have that solid circle, then you're okay. But it's making sure that you allow the right people into your circle.
Right.
And you can easily be led down the garden path, and it has happened to me. Call me an idiot, call me what you want. Maybe I'm too trusting, but for me, I always just imagined that being in the nonprofit industry, and being in the law enforcement industry, or involved with the services, that you can't. I used to take people at face value. You always imagine with them being in that field that they're the right match for you, when realistically they're not. They have hidden agendas, right?
Right. Right.
And as I said, I've learned the hard way. So you have to be very careful about who you allow into your circle.
Right.
And the sad thing about it is, when they hurt you, when they do something on you, you feel hurt by that because you did trust them. You know, it's a bit, I suppose, like being in a relationship and someone having an affair on you, right? It's like you feel that betrayal, you feel that,
Right. Right.
So
You know,
it's
the
a
bottom,
different,
the hard part is that we forget that we're human. We're all
yeah,
human,
yeah,
and we all have and we all, I guess, to an extent, we have an agenda. And whether it's, my agenda is try to help people or try to be honest and true, and even sometimes to our own detriment, some of us. But there's other people who honestly are just, they're doing whatever, they've got their own thing. And it's just like everything else in life, the circle that you allow, whether it's in your personal life, your professional life, whatever, that circle that you allow in there, those people that you kind of float in, you may have this knowledge of all these other people on the fringe, but the circle that you hang out in, or you live in all the time, whether it's your family, your friends, or whatever. They say that the 5 people you hang around with most are going to be the most influential in your life. You're going to be like those 5 people. And so hang out with the good ones, because
yeah,
even if they're all better than you and you're the worst
you're
of
learning from
these
them.
great people, you're going to become one of those good
That's
people.
right.
But if you're the
Surround
best
yourself
of,
with positive people, you'll
right,
pick up. It's a chain reaction. It's a chain reaction.
right.
You become that person.
And if you hang out with, on the adverse side, if you hang out with negative people and you're the best of the negative people, what are you going to become? If you're around them all the time, you're going to start becoming that negative or the whatever. So yeah, you're right. And so when you start saying that you network with these people, you want to try to get the good ones, and you want to vet them. And you mentioned this before earlier in the podcast, that you want to vet the people in which you are including into your organization or whatever. So when you network them, let's talk with them, and there's nothing wrong with talking to somebody, getting to know them and who they are, until they show you their true colors. And then you can say, oh
Exactly.
yeah, okay, great. We would love to work with you,
Yeah.
and I think it's really important. And there is a point where, with the way society is now, that if you don't have it out on social media that you believe what I believe, then you're a bad person. It doesn't matter what you've done or who you really are. It's
Yeah.
what you portray as. And
Exactly.
it shouldn't be that way. It should, and just like you were talking about with the racism with the Irish and any other race, it's that content of character. Who are you? What are you doing?
Exactly.
What are you trying to accomplish? And if you're trying to accomplish something so you can make more money, well, you can go make your money somewhere else. I'm assuming with Irish Angel, that's not the case. And with a lot of these other organizations, these folks that I talk to on here, they're similar. They want to do that same thing, where it is, they get the good people to come in and do the right thing to help other people. And that's our job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. It
Right.
is. And it's like I said, it is a learning curve, because you automatically associate people who move in the same circles as you,
Mm-hmm.
and to be a part of a certain industry, to have to be good at heart, and to be genuine about their intentions. But that's not always the case. And it's just something that people need to be very aware of and be very guarded of, because it only takes, sometimes you'll see, what's this they say, um a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Oh, right.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Exactly what it can be. So you might build up this trust, and you might build this relationship with people, and it might take a couple of months, it might take a couple of years, But when they show their true colors, especially if you've dedicated that amount of time to getting to know somebody and to building that trust with somebody, for them to strip that back, you're just like, whoa, this is
Right.
like, I was not expecting this, like I said, I think from a standpoint of me, one, not being in law enforcement, that was my downfall, was because you guys can look at people and you'll instantly know, you'll get a feel for them, what they're like, are they genuine and all this kind of thing. Takes a little longer for us civilians
Yeah.
to cop on, right? Like, I'm normally a really good judge of character, but I suppose just because I moved in those fields and they did too, that you just assumed that they were on the money, but realistically they weren't. So
Yeah, it's weird that we can do that. We sit there and talk to somebody enough, and enough red flags start popping up that you're like, oh, I see. Okay, well, hey, have a good day, and you just be rude to them, whatever, and you're moving on. But there's sometimes some people are so wily. Sometimes they're so scheming that you may not realize it until after. But that's why you also see a lot of law enforcement or whatever just be standoffish. They'll go and they'll just kind of stand in the back, or they'll be sitting over there and leaning against the wall or whatever, if there's a group or whatever, and they're just getting a feel. They're watching people, and we're doing what we can to determine, because we are very guarded who we let into our world and into our circles, into our families, who we're there's the stereotype of the girlfriend or the daughter who says, hey, I've got a new boyfriend. I want his name. I want his date of birth. I want all this different stuff. I want to know who he is. And then, and they're like, well, and I've actually had that. I've asked my mom, who's this guy? When she first started dating after my stepdad passed away, and she had met some guy, and I said, well, what's his information? What's his name? All this different stuff. Oh, don't worry about it. And I was, no, I want to know who he is. Is he local? All different stuff. Well, it turned out that it was a scammer guy, and he duped her for like $1,000 at a minimum, and she had nothing. She didn't have any money to her name. She's yeah, she hadn't been working because my stepdad was working. He paid the bills, and then she retired or stopped working to help care for him before he passed away. And then now she's in that position where she doesn't have the ability to pay for things, and then some idiot is now taking her money because he's greedy and he's horrible, but it was a whole thing. It was an absolute scam. But I was like, I want to know who this person is. Don't worry about it. Don't tell me not to worry about it. It's what I do. We worry about that, and maybe not worry, but we think about that all the time. Who are we with? Who are we letting in our lives? Who are we letting around our families? Who are these people that are now they may have a tie with me for the rest of my life, and I want to know, are they worth being around? Are they worth having being around you? We forget that our life is precious and small and short. I don't mean small, it's short.
It is. And the older you get, the shorter it's getting, the more you realize just how short you don't have long left, right?
Right. And so don't let garbage in to poison that. Let it flourish, and things need to live and flourish. And so that's why, staying if you're in a moment of depression or whatever, if you're in it, you're going to be in it, but get out of it as soon as possible. See the signs, talk to somebody, whether it's counselors or therapy or whatever, get out of it so you can go live a life worth living. And it sounds like with Irish Angel, that's the sort of thing that you are trying to encourage with.
Yeah, absolutely. We are. It's like with the new website launching now. So that's pretty much, I suppose it's like a one-stop shop for everything when it comes to recognizing the signs, right? Recognizing your signals. So we have a lot of, like I said, people who has been through the wars and back, come on and tell their story. We're not doctors. We can't give advice. We don't give advice.
Right.
Unless you're an expert in that field. Actually, we have one advisor who, he's awesome. but he is a cardiologist and a cop. He's a lieutenant. So he's going to be coming on talking about stress management and, your heart and stuff. He's qualified to do that. I'm not qualified to give advice to anybody.
Right.
So basically, so what we're doing is we're getting in blogs or video blogs from people who is wanting to tell their story in the hopes that it will resonate with somebody else. Irish Angel was built as a blog website anyway. So we're going back to how we began. And so we're going to be sharing people's stories in the hopes that people will sit there and tick a box and say, oh my God, that's how I felt. And then we are working with some really good organizations where we have the resources. So if somebody needs help immediately, we can get the help they need right away. Because this, there's a very short window from when somebody reaches out to breaking point. So you need to be there for them straight away. So we're partnering with a lot of organizations who has that ability to be able to act straight away when somebody is in need of help. So so we have the resources available to them, and then we have the people who is partnering with us is experienced from either their own life experience or from a professional background. So we do have John who's going to do the cardiology stuff, but we have people who has we've one guy, he had TBI. He was a cop and he's a veteran, and he had TBI and he was like 300 pounds, and he lost all of his weight through hard work, exercise, and aside from that, it was what got his mind in a good place. So we want people to be able to, listen to, I suppose, cops talking to cops, veterans talking to veterans, and first responders talking to first responders, so that it will resonate with them. They'll say, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Right. And they jump on board, and it'll be little pointers here and there about your well-being, your health, your nutrition, and just what you want to do, your overall goals in life.
Sure.
It's pretty much a one-stop shop from start to finish, recognizing your sign, finding the help, and maintaining your recovery. That is the main objective of Irish Angel, is to make sure that we can give as much guidance as possible from their own people to be able to get the help they need.
Right. And so when you're talking about helping folks, you're not talking about helping pay a bill or whatever. You're talking about guys and girls who have been through traumatic issues, whether it's an injury or something, or a loss of something that's really knocking them for a loop, whether it's a trauma or a whatever. And people who are contemplating suicide, or people who are, suffering from the loss of a relationship, and now they're trying to figure out who they are, and the depression they're going through, coupled with their life as a police officer or a first responder, and struggling through that. That's the sort of help that you're talking about being able to provide for, correct?
Yeah. An outreach of support from people who has experienced that, and then we have one of our advisory boards as well. He was a cop and he's now a lawyer, and he's partnered with another girl who she was actually one of the first female SWAT officers in Texas, and she too went through her own transition of trauma and what have you, and now both of them do work to be able to advise on situations. A lot of the job, a lot of what goes on within the job has a mental toll on people, and sometimes unions don't want to get involved, or so again, we have the outsource of, you can reach out to these guys, they will talk to you. They're experts in their field, and they will help you as best they can. We just want to try alleviate any stress we can from people, and to get them the help they need. So there is as I said, there is an army behind Irish Angel. And I'm very blessed that I have connected with these people, and they have a passion to want to help, because like I said, I don't think all the doctors in the world might be able to talk doctor jargon and stuff, but I don't think it's going to have the same impact as what it has from somebody who has won the not education surrounding it and the knowledge and the expertise with it, but those who have been in the services.
Yeah.
And that's where the barriers, I think, need to be broken down, because somebody doesn't want to just reach out to a doctor. They want to reach out to a brother or a sister that
Right.
understands the job. They understand, but then they know the other side of it. We have a psychologist on the team who's a former cop too. And you know, he's phenomenal because he can talk to them in their language. He can understand them. And that's where Irish Angel is. It's like we are an army of those who have been in the services or are in the services, but also has expertise outside of the services that can help.
Right.
Whether it's being your mental health, whether it is your physical health, whether it is troubles that you have at work or whatever. We want to try and provide as much resource as possible to be able to help the guys, you know. That's
Right.
so important.
That credibility that lends to the situation when
Yeah.
you can walk in and say, hey, I've done this. I know what you're talking about. All of a sudden somebody's now listening to you, as opposed to I've been in rooms with people, you know,
Yeah.
whether I'm listening to somebody talk or whatever, and
Yeah.
they're like, well, you should do this, and they have no idea about the audience they're speaking to. They have
Exactly.
no idea of the people, of the stuff they see. And
Yeah.
they try to act like, because they've watched movies or whatever, and they have no idea. Police officers, the mindset, the jokes, the dark humor,
Yeah.
you know, all that sort of stuff, and how, and to be honest with you, police officers, first responders, but police officers specifically, they're a rare breed.
Yeah.
That they, whether good, bad, or otherwise, it's what we are. And we'll sit in the back and we'll poke holes, or we'll see the BS, because it's honestly, you can't BS a BSer.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, we know what it is. We see it all the time. People try to lie to us. People go through all these different things, and we have to have a BS meter that is going to read that. And if somebody's not genuine, we're going to see right through it, and we're going to turn them off quick.
Yeah.
If somebody's able to walk in and say, I did the job for 10 years, 15 years, whatever, and then I decided to go become a lawyer or a psychologist or a cardiologist or whatever, all of a sudden the whole tune is, okay, let me hear what you have to say. And then a lot of times it very well can pertain to them and really have an impact.
And it's and even at that, it's, you know, obviously, like, we don't partner with for-profit companies, as in, you know, from a business aspect, so to speak. It's technically more of these guys wanting to volunteer their time to help. So a volunteer's heart, even though they're former law enforcement and in their expertise of their field of expertise, I think that makes them even better, because they're coming from a good place. You know, they have no agenda. They just want to help because they've been in that place. And I think that is the difference. The difference of the stigma. I think it's like it helps break down that. It'll help break down that barrier, because, like I said, people do not want to talk to somebody who is just, not that they're just a doctor. Doctors are amazing, but I mean, you know, that just doesn't get them. And it's like you said, law enforcement in particular, and veterans and stuff, they're a different breed. They're a different breed of people to civilians. Nobody can, I would hate it. I could never be a cop. Like, I genuinely couldn't. I can't even go and see somebody laid out in a coffin in a funeral home, and never mind go and see someone who was in a car accident. Or I'm not built for that. This whole fight or flight thing, I'm the flyer. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm gone, right? I'm a disaster. I
You're
am
the
the
first
worst
one
person
out the
in the
door.
world. Honest to God, I'm the worst person in the world. And I'll hold my hands up to that. But I could never do the job that they do. And that is a true saying, that your mind can never forget what your eyes have seen, you know, and that haunts you. So to go and talk to a doctor, not that, again, there is officers and there is first responders and veterans who will go and talk to those doctors, but there's a majority of them will need a lot of what I would call a breakdown time where they'll often go into, and I know this from talking to different psychologists, where you'll get them in the room, but they won't talk. They'll
Right.
just sit there and they won't say a word. It's like they'll
Right.
wait till their time is up and then they're gone, right? And
Hmm.
it takes a long time to break that barrier down. So that's what we're trying to do, is dissolve that barrier and just have a free-flowing conversations so that people can, recognize stuff in and understand it, because it talks to them. It doesn't talk at them, it talks to them. And that's the most important thing, I think, to end the stigma, try and end the stigma, is to familiarize difficult conversations,
Hmm.
and to familiarize them with people who has themselves.
Right.
So, that's fundamentally what Irish Angel is about. When we were doing the website, Lorraine Gregory, they're an amazing company, and one of the guys is actually on our board, and he is a Medal of Honor recipient, and he had a tough time now, but going back years ago, and now he dedicates his life basically to helping others. But when we were building the website and it was off, they sent me back a preview of it, and how we had doctors come on from the mental health field that gave us stuff to publish on the website. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, Greg, no, I'm not ready to launch this. This is not right. And he's like, I know, Angel. He says, we need to word this our way. And I'm like, yep. I says, it has to be done that way. It has to speak to the person instead of speaking at them.
Right. From a
you know,
genuine place, a genuine caring
exactly.
place, not a clinical.
Not a clinical place. That
Right.
was my whole thing. I was afraid of it being too clinical. I had to speak to officers and first responders and veterans in their language,
In
in a way
human.
that they understand. Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. But not even just in a human way. I mean, like I said, they're a different breed. You have to speak to them the way they understand.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to. It's the only way, I think, that we can. It's Everything else has been tried. We have to try this.
Hmm.
You have to come at it from their angle. So, and that's been my consensus from talking for the last 6 years. I talk to different cops every single day, and
Hmm.
that's the whole thing about it. You'll ask them, would you go to a conference and listen to doctors? They'll go, yeah, we'll listen for about 10 minutes, and then we'll just, be
Yeah.
looking around the
You're
room.
waiting for lunch, and you're waiting for
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
to get
right.
over. Yeah.
Exactly. So talking to people who has been through it, that seems to be the way to go from my research on it,
Right.
so.
I went to a conference last year, I think early last year, just before COVID really just exploded and shut everybody down.
Yeah.
Well, say last year, 2020. But there was, I don't know, 5 different speakers or something like that over 3 days. And everybody spoke, everybody had something to say, and everybody was, there's some people that were talking at you. They were telling you were bad because of whatever belief system you had or whatever the case is, or they're going through these pie charts, these graphs, all these different things. And then one person was they were a great speaker, and they were just a motivational speaker. They weren't necessarily anything else. But then this one guy got up there, and he was the only one who was a police officer. He was a retired police officer after like 25, 30 years. He was and he was animated. He had stories to tell, and he had a very relatable topic. And that was the one that really everybody walked away with. Oh, that guy was great. Oh, I love that. And had a standing ovation afterwards, after just a 3-hour presentation. And I mean, of this room full of law enforcement and firefighter leaders, where everybody was just standing up, and nobody had talked to the guy before. I saw him standing in the back, and I met him before, and so I was able to go back and shake his hand, and he goes, oh yeah, and he remembered me and all this different stuff. But and nobody was talking to him, and he was just kind of standing in the back before. And then afterwards, everybody was just mobbing him to talk to him. And it was just one of those things that if you lend credibility, if you have something valuable that everybody can relate to, everybody that in your audience can relate to, you're going to have that much more of an impact and effect. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely believe that. So I do. I think if you have to speak to your audience You really do understand them, know exactly what they need to hear,
Right.
And to drive your point home. I think it's the only way that we can reach these guys, because the Blue family and first responder veteran family is, they, regardless of whether they're retired or they're no longer in service in some way and because of an injury or whatever, they're still tied. Oh, sorry, bear with me one second.
That's all right.
They're still, oh my God. I don't know how to turn this on. Hang on, I'll try this one. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, I'm good. We're good.
I think that's it. Is it?
So far. Yeah, I hear you.
I pressed the button. I don't know what I did. I'm not very tech savvy, me. But yeah, now see, I've lost my train of thought. I can't even remember what I was saying there. But oh yeah, the family, being a part of that family, it's as long as you can relate to them because you've been in it and you understand it, they're gonna sit up and listen to you. They're going to, they will sit up and listen to you.
Right.
Yeah,
because people are hungry for help, or they're hungry for, not to go through whatever it is alone. And, they're going through whatever, and they're looking for a way out. They're looking to fix this to get back to homeostasis or whatever. And they don't want to necessarily reach out, but if they see something sitting there, they might grab a hold of it. As opposed to always shoving it down your throat and saying, you need to take this. Don't tell me I need to go talk to somebody. Just put it out there, and I may very well go do it on my own, because
that's it. And sometimes you just, what, I think sometimes as well, if you're at the likes of a conference and what have you, and someone comes up to talk to you after, the best thing you could do is just not say anything at all. Just listen. Listen.
Right.
If someone is willing to start to open up to you, just listen. That's all you have to do, is just be there for them.
Yeah.
It's the first step to them going, I can talk about this. I can, if I can talk to this person, I can get help. The help is there, and we're making sure that they get the help they need.
Right.
There's no reason why anybody has to fight what they're going through alone. There really isn't.
Yeah.
Every resource we can have available to them is there as best we can, and that will continue to grow as well as we grow. But just the fact that having people on hand to be able to reach out and call to say, listen, we have someone for you. Can we put them in contact with you? Or that's the main thing. It's the whole sole purpose of Irish Angel, and where we're coming from.
You've mentioned a couple times, you've said, you've talked about PTS, and most of the time when we hear that, we hear the letter D come afterwards. So PTSD, and that's kind of buzzword sort of thing. And you hear that a lot, but you have specifically said PTS. Now, I know there is a difference between PTSI and PTSD, and I don't know if that is so well known. I would assume some people do know it, but you specifically said PTS, and so that kind of just kind of resonated with me, that the difference between this is not so much that it's bad or good or whatever, but that they're not the same thing, but they can morph into one or the other.
Yeah. It's thankfully it's recognized now, PTS. The sad thing about it was PTSD for veterans was nearly always a must, because unless you were diagnosed with PTSD, you weren't entitled to any entitlements or, medical treatment or whatever. And for a long time, it was fought against in the mental health industry to just make it PTS, because it isn't a disorder for many. You can, it's not that you can be healed from it. It's not something that you can fully heal from. It's you can learn to manage your PTS. Now, granted, there is cases that do go into PTSD where it does become a disorder and it is a way of your life constantly. But for many, it's PTS is it's about you recognizing what you have and getting the help you need to maintain that, and that you live a better life beyond that. Disorder is completely different. So you, and the majority of people can, for the want of a better word, heal from it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they don't like labeling the whole PTSD thing, because you have to go past that point of your PTS to where it's overwhelming every single day, and it's encroaching on your life constantly. You know, it's like something that you can't heal from, but majority of people can with the right care. So, you know, people need to be aware of that. I still hashtag PTSD and things just because it was a hashtag for so long, that'll always be searched by people, because PTS is still new, and it's still kind of being pushed out into that field. And it'll take a while, but it is getting there. Like, people are copping on now and realizing that, you know, thankfully now, as I said, it's been changed that veterans can now put down that they've had PTS as opposed to PTSD. So there's a change in the tide of everything in general. I mean, you have that end of things, and then you have the culture within the services from the brass. Majority of brass years ago wouldn't even dream of saying that, you know, mental health is a thing, or PTS is a thing within law enforcement. Or normally it would be like, you know, pull up your big boy pants, get on with it. You know, it's time to, you can't dwell on it. You just got to move on from it. Them days are gone. So the culture is changing from the top down. And I'm praying that it's going to change from the bottom up as well, meaning the new recruits coming in to law enforcement are trained in what's going to happen to them mentally as well as physically, because if they're prepared, it won't come. Of course, everything is going to be a shock at first, and how they process it. You know, the younger generation coming up through law enforcement in particular, it's so funny. All they want to do is talk. But the older, will have no experience, and then you have the veterans who are so experienced and don't want to talk. So it's like, where do you find that middle ground of, you know, how do we change it? So the culture is changing slowly, really slowly. But it is getting better, and every day. I'm sorry. My laptop rings as well as my phone. So every day it's getting better. And I just hope, you know, at some point they will meet in the middle, where the training, it is taught through coming up through the ranks, and that it is fed down from the brass down. That's what it needs to be.
I'm going through a book right now called He Was No Coward. And it's about a private in World War I from Britain who was Harry Farr was his name, and he had got through so much crap because, you know, the warfare was so brutal in World War I with the trenches and all that stuff. That he went through this, and he could not. He got sent back to the rear several times, and they kept pushing him back to the front, and he's like, I'm not good to go, and they're like, nope, you got to go. So he would be struggling with this whole thing. Well, they would say, you know, back then they said that people had what's called shell shock, and they don't talk about it now. We don't call it shell shock. Well, you know, what is that? Back then, that was what PTSD was. And PTSD is, and and you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. However, they would say that PTSD is PTSI, which is post-traumatic stress injury, just prolonged, having multiple days, like over 30 days or 20 days or something like that of constant injury causes the disorder. However, you can get to it. You can try to stop it, mitigate it before it happens. And so so all these guys coming back, and there's documentaries on Netflix or whatever about this whole thing about shell shock and all that stuff like that. These poor guys that came back from the war just messed up and unable to be usable people anymore because their minds were so all over the place. Well, you fast forward to World War II, and let's take the Americans who were over there doing all the stuff, doing all the fighting and everything else. They came back. Well, they had weeks to months to come back on ships back to the United States, at least the American ones, the American soldiers come back. And during those times that they were on the ships, they'd be able to talk. They'd be able to get all the information out, and everybody would tell their stories while they're on the ships for the couple of weeks that they're there. And then all that information would get out, and they would be okay. They would be much better. And now you have, now you have those guys that are over in the war, whether it was Afghanistan, Iraq, or whatever. They're coming home, and they're within the next day or two, they're home because they're flying, because they're getting home so fast. And so now they don't have the ability to get that information out there and just get it off their chest. And so they're bundling it up and keeping it inside.
That's it. You literally go from being at war to sitting in your living room. You know what I mean? And it's like, where is that the time to decompress?
Correct.
Where, that just doesn't happen. And that's such a dangerous thing. It's such a dangerous thing. And it's the same. And you know what? It's ever increasing as well with retirees.
Mm-hmm.
Retirees, we forget about the law enforcement officers who are retiring. We always know about there's a transition period when you come from being a vet, from being in the military to your civilian life. But for a cop is 20, 30 years in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seeing what they see, experiencing what they're experiencing, and to literally go from being a part of a brotherhood, putting on your uniform every day, having purpose in your life, to suddenly waking up, and for 2 weeks you're great, you're going fishing, you're loving life, and everything is rosy in the garden, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, where's everybody? The phone stops ringing. You don't have to put on your uniform anymore. You feel like you've no purpose. You don't have that brotherhood, that tight brotherhood you once had.
Right.
So that in itself, that's another transition period that needs to be addressed too, because there's so much we don't think on. We just think that they're moving on to you're home from war, you'll be grand, you're home, life is good, life is just going to slide on back in there and everything will be great. And it's the exact same for cops and first responders when they leave their line of duty. It's like you imagine life is just going to, be much better. You're going to slip back into life and everything is going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. There's a reality to it, and a harsh reality for many. And it's something that and suicide through retirees is a huge thing. It's just, it goes undocumented now. You don't hear about it as much because they've left the service.
Right.
So it's something that needs to be addressed, and we have to start thinking about this. We have to start thinking about, how the well-being, it's like going, like I said, going from war to sitting in your living room. How does your mind process that?
Right. Yeah.
Where's the off switch? You just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it must be the hardest thing in the world. It
right.
Really
and I couldn't even imagine. I mean, I guess I could imagine. But you don't see the gravity of it until you're actually in it. And you can say, well, I know what you're feeling. You don't know what you're feeling unless you've been through it, you've been doing it. And it's just like everything else we've been talking about. Yeah. Those who have been through it and have done it, they can say, I know how you feel. Yeah. But those other people, those of us who are not in that position, whether it's retired or from being over in the war, and now you're walking through the mall, you don't know the difference. You don't see the difference between life until you're actually doing it. And it becomes a surreal thing. I remember I had a job I didn't like for the longest time when I was younger. And when I finally became a police officer, I remember waking up like, am I doing this? I'm not going to that other job that I had. I'm putting on a uniform with a badge. And it was so surreal to me initially. Yeah. Because I'd spend so much time doing the other thing. and now I get to do this. So, and it's obviously one of those things that has come full circle, and I know it, and you get used to it, and you got to make sure you're doing stuff to keep it alive. But I don't know if there's some people that just have a hard time with it because that's their identity being wrapped up in that position.
It is. It's all they've ever known, you know, all they've ever known. And they lived, breathed, and it was their life. It was everything. And to have that gone is just like, what in the world? You know what I mean? Some cope fine, others don't.
And there's one side of it being gone, but the other side of it is if it's gone traumatically, whether it's because you got injured, you got shot, or you got hurt, or you had to step away because something bad happened and you just can't shake it, or you were even betrayed by your administration, or for what you perceive to be a betrayal, or by a friend, or an organization in which you dedicated your life to.
Yeah, exactly. And they're the things that people don't think about. You know, we automatically assume that post-traumatic stress and all that kind of stuff comes through the job. Yes, it does. But then, like you said, sometimes it's when you leave the job and you process that you no longer have that. Like you said, if it's how you leave, and it's the support network around you, you don't have that support network. Your mind, the worst thing you can have on your hands is time. When you have too much time on your hands, you think and you overthink. And that is a dangerous area to be in for anybody, never mind a first responder.
Right. You don't want to be up here.
Exactly. No one needs to be in my brain that's scrambled. But that, you know, so like you don't know what way you're going to react, you know. Nobody does. All we can do is try and help them prepare,
right,
as best we can, and to have resources there available for everybody, because everybody deserves a fighting chance to live a somewhat of a normal life, you know, and a happy life. And it can be achieved. The amount of people I talk to that has come out the other side and are living full lives. I mean, the way they look at it is they've been given a second chance of life, you know.
Right.
And they grab it with both hands. And everybody, it's like I said before, we're all giving them choices. It's just, can we see the wood for the trees? You know, you just got to grab it with both hands.
Right.
Reach out. Reaching out is the hardest, most strongest thing you can do in your life, but life will get better once you do it, but you have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people there to help you. You just gotta reach out.
Right. I was talking to I had a gentleman on the show here, Michael Segru, and he was talking about that whole idea. And we got to talking about a debrief, you know, after a traumatic incident, whether shooting or whatever. And everybody that was involved, whether it's dispatchers, police officers, firefighters, EMTs, everybody that's involved gets there, and they come to talk about the whole thing. Yes, I saw this, or I did this. This is my portion. This is what I did. And he goes, yeah, debriefs are great. But sometimes, you know, you'll have those guys or girls who did stuff and they're not saying anything. They might say, I did this. And then they just sit back and they let everybody else talk. And they're not willing to open up. He goes, sometimes those are good, but sometimes they're not, because in a big group like that, sometimes people don't want to open up. Yeah. And so that's where that, you know, having sometimes an anonymous person they can talk to that does know their situation, or that can relate, or, you know, can come alongside them and be that person that helps them out, which is it's fantastic. Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's all about. You know, having that there for them. It's the main thing.
So
main thing.
Yeah. I think the work that you're doing is, I guess it's what's the word? I'm looking for the right adjective here, but it's one of those things that you can't necessarily put a price on, like you said. And the fact that it came out of just wanting to do something nice, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's nice, let's do this. And then just building up and expounding on it, and then making it grow into what it is, to where it got the attention of other people who are now who are now looking at it like, we need to give it a call sign, and we're going to help you out. You get a nickname, and you even talked about it, how people refer to you and they call you Angel, and it's that's not everybody has a nickname, that's cool. And that's, so you get to the point where when somebody were to say that in a crowded room, you're turning around, much like when you become a parent and you hear mom for the first time or whatever by another person's voice, you turn around because that's now your name. That's one of your identities. And that's cool in and of itself. But the idea that came about because you are helping other people and you're pushing to make sure people are doing good because of your ability to help them out. That's just a fantastic thing. It's really cool.
Yeah, I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. And like I said, we all have our trials and tribulations in our own lives. I think nobody is exempt from PTS. Every trauma is trauma. And we all have it in our lives in some way, shape, or form. And someone's trauma that's extensive might seem, when they look at other people with slight traumas, they're like, here, well, here's mine. When realistically, it's not. In their world, that's their trauma. And I've had my own trauma. So we all live through it. It's what we do with it, It's the decisions we make to do something good,
right?
To turn that into a positive. We all have that ability. We all just need to recognize what we're about, process what we're doing, and get the help that we need. And then you can start to help other people. So when I do Irish Angel, it is my therapy. It is my therapy. It genuinely is, because it makes me feel better for helping other people.
That's really cool.
And not by that. And I'm very blessed, and I'm honored. As far as I'm concerned, I'm honored to be allowed into that community in the United States. I mean, I'm a nobody. I'm just another person from another country. I never expected to be, and I am part of a family as far as they're concerned. And I am part of their family.
Sure. Yeah. I saw it when we were at that conference, and people are talking to you and all this different stuff, and hearing the things they were saying. It's amazing that people look at you like that. And when I'm asking you, okay, so what law enforcement experience do you have? Oh, I've got a cousin, I've got a brother-in-law, I've got but it's like, well, you haven't. No, but I feel so strongly for it. And that's what I was saying at the very beginning, is we need to have people, we need to have support systems. We can't always just do this on our own.
No.
Let's take the military, for example, right? If everybody was a frontline soldier rifleman, which on the bottom, the basics, yes, you are. However, everybody was doing that and everybody was at the front, there'd be nobody to be support and logistics and intelligence and all this different information and all this different stuff that they need. And they say that for every frontline trooper in the military, there has to be at least 10 people in the support ranks for whether it's food or equipment or intelligence or whatever. There has to be 10 people to help that one soldier out. So, and that's where people like you come in. That's what you are, a support system. You are that one thing, one of those people who are coming along and helping other people. Because like you said, you couldn't be the one that would be busting through a door or going to the front. You'd be running. You're the first one running away, because
on the other way.
and to admit that you can be that way with a straight face and without feeling any kind of a shame in it. And it's not something that everybody can do. It's a difficult road to hoe. However, there is you can't do it alone. You got to have a support system. You got to have that support network that you said that comes alongside and helps everybody else. So
you definitely do. And it's funny you say that. Like, Irish Angel for me, I know, like, obviously Irish Angel couldn't have been grown without me, but realistically it's not about me, it's about what we do.
Right.
And it's always been that way for me. So when we were on lockdown for the last 2 years, as much as I'd be on social media and stuff, you forget what it's like to have that interaction with people as human beings, right? Because you're locked. different for you. You're a cop, so you're still in it, right? You were
Hmm.
still in it. So for me, I was locked away for 2 years. And going over to the United States again was nerve-wracking for me because I hadn't been away on my own since 2019.
Hmm.
And even to be in big crowds again was kind of making me feel nervous. Not nervous over COVID or anything like that. I mean, just nervous because how was I going to be? How was I going to speak around people? How was I going to
Right.
react to people? Right.
Yeah.
And I remember walking into the conference. I remember walking into the conference and everybody going, "Oh my God, you're Irish Angel, aren't you?" And I was going, I'm looking around and going, "Yeah." That people recognized who I was. So for me, I'm still that. No, I'm still that. I'm not that person. I'm just Amanda Coleman. Like I'm just me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So being over there and then having people, like you said, recognizing me and knowing what I do was alien to me.
Right, right. Well, because you continued to do what you did, and you had really planted some seeds for some people and really got them to think, and you saw the positivity in your posts and all this different stuff, which is, there's a negative and positive side to social media
Yeah,
that, and I think there's a lot of negative, but like that sort of thing right there is a positive thing that can totally flourish and help and be a
can.
betterment to everybody.
It can, but like I said, I'm one of these people. I would rather be in behind the scenes, but I know I can't. And my board is always like, "Amanda, you are Irish Angel. You're the face of Irish Angel, and you need to put yourself out there." And I'm like, eh, you know,
Right.
well, it's not
That's
about me. It's
that's
about what we do. It's about
right,
what we do.
right.
So I was blown away. I was a bit overwhelmed, to be perfectly honest. Particularly on the first day of the conference, because it's the first time I seen anybody, um, of walking into that room and people asking for pictures with you and all this kind of. I'm going. I just sit work from my living room at home, just typing away. I'm not meant to be doing this kind of stuff. But realistically, without that, Irish Angel wouldn't be here.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like anything that's, without the hard work and the passion that somebody has, things won't happen. And the fact that you do this and this is your passion and this is the thing that you look at as being a legacy. When I had Randy Sutton on this show, he goes, my thing is I want legacy. I want to leave a legacy that's worth leaving.
yeah,
And you are absolutely doing that with Irish Angel. It's a huge thing because it's not just Ireland and the United States. It's actually international.
yeah. The following for Irish Angel is huge. Like what we people actually, and I feel I love him to bits. He breaks my heart. I have a friend of mine. He was a police officer here. No, he wasn't a police officer here in Ireland. He's from here in Ireland. He's
Mhm.
from Louth, and he now is a police officer. He's a sergeant in I think it's Perth in Australia,
Uh-huh.
and he is going through the wars right now because obviously the way COVID is over there, the mandates are like it's bad enough in the United States. It's worse in Australia.
Yeah,
Oh my
they're
God.
really locking down, and not just locking down like you have to stay in your house. Just come on now. No,
Yes.
it is. Your threat of getting in trouble, going to jail, or
Yeah.
worse.
And he reached out to me. I'll never forget it. He reached out to me on Instagram. I'd not known him from living in Ireland. He reached out
Mm.
to me on Instagram and he was like, "Amanda, fair play to you for doing what you're doing. And you've reached so many, including me." And I was like, Jesus, I've even gone all the way around to Australia. But now it just shows, one person and one person can be just like a little tiny pebble, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You throw a pebble into an ocean, and if you throw it hard enough, it'll make a big splash and it will have a ripple effect that can touch anyone. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you should always try do good.
Right.
Always, because you never know who's watching and you never know who you might touch
Right.
and who you might help. And that's one thing that I do love about what I do is I never expected it to be anything that what it has turned into now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I am very blessed to say that I have touched people and that I help people. And
Right.
they've touched me just as much,
Right.
So always try do better.
Yeah.
Always just try do better and be a
You,
better person.
it's funny you use that pebble analogy. And those of you who listen to the show are probably laughing or pointing or saying that I set her up. But I use that analogy, I don't
You do?
know, every other episode. I've used it since the very beginning of the show. And I use the analogy: you put a pebble in a pond or an ocean or wherever, any body of
Yeah.
water, and it's going to go out, and those ripples are eventually going to touch the shore, and they're going to touch others. They're going to push a boat. They're going to push a ship. They're going to do whatever.
It is a fact.
And I use that analogy, if not every episode, every other episode, where we get that information out there that every individual person, one woman can make a difference. And it doesn't,
Yeah, exactly.
if your intent is good, if your intent is positive, and the desire to help and serve other people with a humble heart and the desire to do good, because that's what the Lord put in you, then do it, and let your legacy speak for itself.
Yeah,
because it will.
absolutely. I genuinely believe that. And you don't even have to, like, if you're not, ambitious is the wrong word to say, I guess, because I never expected it to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
But even just in your daily life, if you can lift and love on someone and make them smile, do something that actually lifts people up every day,
Yeah.
you've done something really good.
Right.
And it's funny because people, you obviously see the pinup girls, right? I post every day.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a Coca-Cola one or something recently.
Yeah, I do them every single day. We have themes every day. We're actually going to be doing our own calendars and posters of pinup girls to sell to raise funds for Irish Angel. But
that's something cops will get behind.
Yeah, I know, right? So I post them every day, right? Every single day we have different themes for different days. And I always post it with a really positive outlook on your day.
Right.
And it's funny because I will have police officers in particular, and I mean high-ranking police officers, that will in-mail me. They won't comment or they won't like it, but they'll in-mail me and they'll be like, thank you so much for that. And it's not, and then having said that, you get people, you get the Karens, right? That come after you and they say, that's sexist, or that's, you shouldn't be posting that. I mean, why would you post something like that? You're obviously doing it for attention. I'm like, no. That is a tip to the World War era, the World War II era.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. They were all on all of the aircrafts years ago, and it gave hope. It gave hope to all of those men over there overseas.
Give them a reason to want to fight, knowing that they can go back to their girl who was like that.
Their girl, exactly. So that's why I post them, and it's not, as I said, it's not in a sexual way or anything like that. It is to make someone smile, to make someone, trigger a good memory, trigger a thought for your day. And that's what it's all about. If you can make somebody smile within your day, you've done something good. You don't have to go to extreme lengths to do stuff to make someone happy. Just something small, tell someone they look good, tell someone, that just be kind to people, just be kind to people. It costs nothing to be kind to people.
Absolutely. I recently saw, videos that you watch on whatever social media. And that was somebody, this person just had a camera and they were just going around and they were just telling people positive things. Hey, I like your hair. Hey, you look like a movie star. Hey, your smile's infectious. Hey, I like your attitude. It's positive and whatever. And it just changed everybody's, hey, thank you very much. Because we do things all the time and we don't, whether we think people notice or not. And then they say something and all of a sudden that gives us a little bit of just sunshine in our day, and I think we all need it, and not just so we can be skipping down the road or whatever.
No,
but as a plant needs sunshine to grow, we sometimes need positivity just to.
Absolutely. A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, Joe Collins, I love him. He is awesome. He's a former chief. He now works for Acadia Health. And I went to visit him in Texas when I was over there the last time. And he said to me, you know what, Amanda? He said, do random acts of kindness every day. He said, I recently he got on a plane He was going to a conference, I think in Chicago, and he got on the plane and he took a box of chocolates with him. Cost him like $3, $4 for a box of chocolates, little chocolates, whatever.
Mhm.
And he got on the plane and he spoke to the air staff, the air hostesses and what have you. And he said, I just want to thank you, he said, for what you do. He says, you look after us all when nobody's looking after you. And he handed her a box of chocolates and she burst into tears. And the head, I think he was the head of the crew, said that he was blown away by what had just happened and that he was going to go and see him after, if he ever found out that he was on a conference. And he
Mhm.
did.
Hmm.
He went to the conference and he was just like, you had that little act of kindness had such a big impact on all of our staff. He said that we now want you to come and talk to us, because it changed that one little thing had that ripple effect, and it went through all of the staff and it made them all feel good, and it made Joe feel good.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just a simple little act of kindness
Yep.
that makes such a difference.
You never know what somebody's going through. One.
Exactly.
So if somebody's grumpy or whatever, you don't know what they're going through. And so you might take it with a grain of salt. On the adverse side, you never know. They might be putting up a false front. And then you just need to acknowledge their positivity. And then all of a sudden they can be breaking down and thank you for noticing. A lot of stuff happens that we just don't know. So the nicer, the better you are to people, the more of a difference you're going to make. Yeah, it absolutely does, Beck. Yeah.
It does. I am a firm believer in karma. I think, what you put out into the universe, it'll come back to you. And as long as you try and be the best version of yourself every single day, and try to lift people up. Yeah. You can't go wrong. Right. You might be the poorest person in the world, but if you have a servant's heart, if you want to help other people, and just by doing little small things, like I said, no money in the world can buy that, how you feel.
That's true. Yep. Absolutely.
Definitely.
So, we've been talking for a bit here, and then we can just keep going on and we can talk about right? Positivity, and we can go however we're getting. It's the, as you would say, the wee hours of the morning.
It is. Huh? Like what's it? It's just gone 12 o'clock here at night.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And don't make fun of my horrible Irish accent, but I am very I do have a lot of a good portion of me is Irish. My mom is short and redhead, so she's but my grandma was pretty diehard. She always we had a shillelagh always hanging in my grandma's house, all that stuff like that, and everything. There's shamrocks all over. My grandma was very 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 Irish. But that whole thing is, I can't help but thank you for coming on and really just showing us a total different side of things. And, we don't realize is either there, or we don't necessarily realize the impact or the standing that we have, that we're not some big bad meanies because we're America, corporate, all this different garbage, but we're more of, you guys see the United States as the last bastion of that lighthouse on a hill.
You're the hope. You're all we got right now.
If the world loses the United States,
God help us. God help us.
There's a lot of garbage that will.
I fear that's the one thing I absolutely fear the most. We're at a crucial point in history right now, as to how this plays out. And I'm hoping to good God that good overcomes evil. That's all I gotta say on it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So
we have to just keep the faith.
That's
keep
right.
Hope, keep loving on each other. You're sorted.
That's right. So like I said, I want to thank you for coming on. I do want to let everybody know that if you want to get a hold of us, or if you have questions for any of my guests, or if you want to comment on any of our episodes or anything like that, you can get a hold of us. You can find us on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. You can go to the website, which is the What's a Hero podcast.buzzsprout.com, and you can find every prior episode. Plus, there are links to whatever podcast platform you might listen to, and you can go there, subscribe to the episode, and they'll give you a notification as to when each new episode pops up. And you'll be able to download it from there. Downloads help us out, helps me out, know the numbers and all this different stuff. So if and when I ever want to monetize this, which I haven't done yet, but if I want to get advertisers and all that stuff, which might be cool, having somebody that'd be willing to, throw down a couple of dollars so I can keep this baby rolling and talk about their product, I'm all for it. So, but you can find us on there and you can download the episodes and be part of it. I don't want just this to go out and everybody just soak it up, if that's what you're doing, soaking it up. But I want you to come, be part of it and help this whole thing just become better so you can help either Irish Angel or any of the other organizations that I have on here, whether it's, Kathy and Javier and their organization, that peer couple, or if it's, the Wounded Blue or any of those other organizations that I have on here, the authors that I have on here. And you just never know the difference you might make in these organizations, and reach out to them and see if there's any way you can help them too. So it's great. Amanda, do you have any final words you'd like to offer the fine folks in the What's a Hero podcast world?
No, I think I kind of hit it all on the head. I think the only thing I would say to you is, like I just said, lift and love on each other and help someone up when they're down. So
Absolutely.
And reach out.
Yeah, do it. That's okay. Where can people reach you?
You can get us on www.irishangel.org. Watch out for the new website. It's just about to launch. And you can email me directly at amanda.irishangel@gmail.com.
And you can find Irish Angel on LinkedIn, correct?
Oh, we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. What else are we on? God, I think we're on all of the major platforms anyway. So yeah.
Yeah. Look for, just Google Irish Angel and it'll pop up,
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Huh?
On the website, there's links to all our social media. We're on TikTok as well. We're just kind of getting that a little bit going now. So TikTok's very fun.
Yeah. So and that's fantastic. So we'll make sure there's links on all of our social media platforms when I post for this episode. And so they should have it. It should be good to go. So
thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you for showing up. I think for coming on, and it's, it was a kind of a lot of roller coaster to get us together and figure out times because of the difference, but it worked out great and I appreciate it. So for Amanda Coleman and Irish Angel, I have been Ken Frownfelter, and this has been the What's a Hero podcast. We are clear.